Hello and welcome to TelecomTV. We're here in Santa Clara in California in the United States at the 7th meeting of the, I've got to get this exactly right, ETSI NFV ISG. And I'm talking with Chris Koopmans, who is the Vice President and General Manager, Service Provider Platforms, Cloud Networking Group at Citrix. That's quite a mouthful, but we know what you do. So welcome.
Thank you very much.
Chris. Let me begin with this. It's generally accepted that there are two major transitions taking place within the industry at the moment: business transition and network transition. Let's cover those off for a start. What about the business side of it?
Sure. So what we're seeing, of course, in the business space is operators looking for well, there's a transition happening from voice to data and from data to services. So moving from basic connectivity and providing basic connectivity towards other types of digital lifestyle services, and mobile voice is generally very well penetrated in a large mobile and fixed voice, penetrated in a large part for all the developed world, and now we're really looking towards offering all kinds of new data services, Internet of Things, and connected cars, and connected homes, and you name it, all these different types of devices that are being connected, which is all built around the foundation of a mobile data network. And you see operators diversifying in all kinds of different spaces, whether they're becoming cloud service providers, infrastructure service providers, or building digital lifestyle, home security management, many different types of business models that go beyond the basic connectivity. So there's this pretty large business transformation that's underway right now.
What about the network?
In the network, we're moving from a world where we had a very small set of vendors providing customized hardware built to a very specific set of telecom standards, to a world where we look much more like a data center running off-the-shelf hardware and loads of software. And what that means is we're moving from a world where for a vendor to build the type of equipment, very high barrier to entry, very long time to productize, and a very long sort of life cycle in the network that in order to reap the long cycle of development, towards a world where we can maybe write software in 6 months and deploy it in the network in 6 months and move on. And so now you're seeing what a virtualized or a software-based network architecture would allow us to innovate much faster, lower the barrier to entry for new startups to come into this space and develop new capabilities and products, and create a shake-up in the vendor landscape so that there's lots of new options for operators looking to differentiate themselves in and amongst one another.
Operators, you mentioned service providers. Let's move on to those, Chris. What do you see the service providers, the operators, the carriers actually needing? What are their requirements now?
Well, let's talk about mobile operators, because I think it's one of the fastest growing access types, obviously. And what's happening now is the shift from mobile voice to mobile data. It was really only 5 or 6 years ago that 99% of all the traffic on the network would have still been voice traffic, in which case they had lots of infrastructure focused on that. Today it's mobile data traffic, and of course we've spent many years now, whether it be buying spectrum and deploying radio network access networks and building out this big massive data network. Now what we're seeing is multiple other types of services being carried over these data networks. So there's no such thing really as just mobile data. You've got television, radio, communications, telephone, so you have all these different types of things that are actually being carried over the data bear. And so if operators in sort of the old world would look at this just as megabits per second and latency, a data connection, then they really don't understand what the underlying applications that are being carried over that network are, what the user experience is, whether they're getting a good user experience, how do they differentiate themselves in amongst their competitors. And so I think some of the things that we're seeing is an increased need for products like Citrix products that help operators to get under the covers and break that big pipe of traffic down into what are the applications, long form video, social networking, radio, and then to build user experience metrics around each of those applications, right? So let's just take video, for example. The number one metric for video is stalling. That's that point where they're playing the video and all of a sudden you see this little circle saying please wait, right?
Seen it myself.
Most frustrating thing that can happen to a user. What we're hearing from our customers is that today the video stall is the dropped call of 5 or 6 years ago, and it's the type of thing that they then need to be able to measure and understand and then improve, right? And sometimes you can improve that through coverage, through new optimizing networks, through better bandwidth, better backhaul, more carriers, etc. Sometimes you can't, right? Sometimes maybe bad signal, low quality device, high quality video, and you need to really take proactive action in the network on the traffic. And so the Byte Mobile Adaptive Traffic Manager is a good example of a product that will allow operators to measure, but then also improve that user experience by reducing stalling and controlling the overall video experience.
As the network evolves and changes, how important do you think standards bodies like ETSI are going to be as we become more and more data dependent?
Good question. So I think standards bodies have a very strong role to play, as they always have in the internet and in telecom networks as well, because of the necessity of interoperability. What we need in the sort of prior generation networks, we had what I would call vertical separation. So you had a series of nodes that were connected to each other, and therefore you had to have APIs in between them, and those would get standardized by 3GPP or some other standards body. Now we're moving towards a world where underneath all of that, the infrastructure that those elements run in is being horizontally separated, so that you can have physical infrastructure, operating systems and control layers, service delivery layers, and then the actual applications, and then on the side you have orchestration layers putting all these things together. If that's all going to work together, they have to have standards, vendors have to be driven to move in a direction that can allow all these pieces to interoperate together. However, I think what we have to be careful of is making sure that there's enough leeway in general for vendors and others to innovate and to come up with new things. So we need to standardize where we can really help, and then we need to sort of leave, I think, white space where vendors can really innovate and come up with new and exciting ideas.
Great stuff. Chris Koopmans, thank you very much indeed.